What's up, gang? Welcome to the Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius. I'm so pumped to have you here with me. Now, listen, the Greatness Machine, we're about two things. Number one, people who are living their passions. And number two, those who are creating greatness in the world and doing both of these things despite the odds against them. Each episode, we're going to feature interviews with game changers, business leaders, telling us their origin stories, what made them tick, what got them to where they are now. Why? So it can help you step into your greatness within your life, your business, and your career. Occasionally, you might hear a few solo episodes from myself, moi, as I say, as I leverage my 20 years of entrepreneurship as a CEO and founder to help you grow and level up in your journey to scale your life and your business. So, come be a fly on the wall, enjoy the conversation, and I'm stoked to have you here with me. Guys, welcome to today's episode of The Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius, and boy, do we have special guests. Dr. Sadie Allison is in the house. What's up, Dr. Sadie?
Hey, what's up? Hi, how are you?
Oh my gosh, I'm so pumped to have you on the show. So excited. It's been forever.
Awesome.
Welcome.
It has. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be on your show, finally.
Oh my gosh, finally, we made it happen. Dr. Sadie, do you mind if I do a little bit of housekeeping and then we'll get going?
Oh, by all means.
Amazing. So for listeners who are new to the Greatness Machine, we're about two things: people living their passions and those creating greatness in the world and doing so despite the odds. And Dr. Sadie is neither short of passion or greatness. So Dr. Sadie, I want to give the audience a little bit of our background. Is that cool if I kind of give them some of the 411 and how we know each other?
Oh yeah, sure.
Awesome. So I met Dr. Sadie in 2012-ish, 13. I think it was 2012 because it was right after I did my first TEDx event, and we were in EO San Francisco together. And I was, and so back then, this is pre-Greatness Machine. I was like, man, I want to do an event where it just shows people that have just done fucking awesome, cool things, and they're super interesting, and they live their passions to create greatness in the world. Sound familiar, listeners? And so I went out to my network and we had all these amazing folks, and I hit up Dr. Sadie, and she came to our event and freaking knocked the cover off the ball. Just had an amazing TED Talk. And got to know her better. And so that was how we met. And it was just such a cool event. And I was so grateful to have you be a part of it and for you to spread your message in the world. But yeah, there's our background. So I was kind of like blown away by that whole thing. I mean, we're going to talk a lot about all sorts of stuff, but how did it feel to do that for us to meet that way, for you to do that talk? I mean, I'd love for you to give me a little bit of feedback.
Sure.
I never asked you.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for offering me that opportunity. That was amazing. And it was a great time in my career to do something like that. And the first thing I'd say, it was a big challenge because as you might imagine, it can be nerve-wracking to go, wow, I'm going to be doing a TEDx talk. And so I got to bring my A game. So I spent a lot of time figuring out, which topic I wanted to speak on. And you were actually really helpful to brainstorm that with me back then. I remember we were on the phone and you were mentoring me through some things. But it was a great challenge. And it was something that was really fulfilling because when I actually finally did it, I made it through. I prepared to the best of my ability. And I knew at that time when it was game on to actually go on stage that I was as prepared as I could be. And at that point, your best is good enough. And so I just went with it. And it was such a natural high because I felt like I did pretty good. I was satisfied. I felt proud. And it was a really great experience. I mean, everybody did a wonderful job and were very neat, interesting people. And I was really honored to be a part of that.
Yeah, it was so cool. I remember like we were talking and you're people that don't know Dr. Sadie are not going to know that she means business. Like she takes shit seriously. And so she's going over a talk with me and I could tell like you had put a lot of effort into what you wanted to talk about. But I felt like it was just like it didn't have that, like it was I felt like it wasn't like where I wanted it to be, even though it was going to be, it would have been a great talk had you done the talk that you originally brought to me. But I was like, I think, and I remember I was like, I think it's like this talks about gifting, that you gift people orgasms, and then we kind of went and had this like really cool conversation around that. And then you came and delivered, man. Like you brought it and you really prepared, to your point. Like you came super prepared, which you don't know this a lot. I mean, like having curated 2 of those events, some people do the work and you totally did the work. And some people, they don't do the work, and and especially being someone that curates the events, like it's a community organized TED event, right? So like we're not getting paid to do this, like we're doing it just out of like the passion of doing something cool. And
Right.
then and so when the speakers come and they care and they put in the effort, it means a lot to us. And when they don't, you're like offended. You're like, dude, why did you say yes? You shouldn't have said yes. So I was very
Good.
grateful that you did the work, and
Oh,
it's a beautiful talk. It was the most popular talk from that year, actually. So
thank you. I'm glad I made you proud.
so much. So I'm going to do your formal bio, and then I'd love if you could give our audience a little bit of your origin story. Does that sound like a plan?
Sure. Wonderful.
Awesome. So Dr. Sadie is the founder and kitty in chief of Tickle Kitty. And I love your company, by the way. And we're going to talk about the little goodie bag you sent me.
Thank you.
She is Dr. Sadie Allison is the pioneering founder of Go Love CBD Intimate Serum, and I am now a user of these products. So thank you again. And she is the award-winning author and sexual health advocate. And we have all these amazing books. I mean, I'm covering my face with sex help books, sex technique books that Dr. Sadie has authored. And you're just an all-around badass, you know, TEDx talker. Like, I mean, man, you were just creating so much greatness in the world. But I would love, you know, before you became the kitty in chief and this, you know, sexual superhero in the world of sexual health, how did you get into all this stuff? Give us your origin story. I'd love for you to give a little background for our audience.
I'd love to. And I have to say, I've never been called a sexual superhero, and I like that. I have to tell you some of my, I have some other nicknames that I've accumulated over the years I could share with you. But so my journey started actually in high school. I was that uninhibited girl that spoke out loud about sex. And I think most people probably can know somebody like, oh, yeah, that was Susie back then. That was the one. So I was that girl. I grew up in the 70s in San Francisco. My parents were hippies, and I did not have sexual shame in my household. I remember finding the Playboy magazines, and sex was never presented as a bad or negative thing. Like, unfortunately, a lot of people get programmed, whether it be from religion or society or their parents, to create all this baggage around sexuality. So I was finding in talking to my girlfriends in high school that they weren't having good sex, they weren't having orgasms, and they were very uncomfortable talking about sex or even talking about masturbation. And because I was very comfortable, I didn't relate to that at all. And I wanted to help them. I was like, wow, you've never had an orgasm and you've been dating him for 2 years? Well, gosh, you know how to give one to yourself, right? And my girlfriends would tell me that they've never had an orgasm. So that's when I took it upon myself to teach them all about the clitoris, about lubrication, different touching styles and techniques, so that they can go and explore and learn how to do it. And mostly what I found was that I was giving them permission and letting them know it's okay to touch themselves. It's our natural birthright to have pleasure. And so just by them hearing me speak so comfortably and confidently about it and teaching them the tools so that they can go and then explore, I've taught hundreds of women, thousands maybe now, how to have an orgasm. And so I realized, though, that I was giving this gift to them. Like, wow, I just helped this girl learn how to orgasm. And now it just opened up a whole new world for her in the bedroom to have pleasure and to explore and to be able to talk to her lovers about what she likes and doesn't like now. But what I found was the gift of giving was even more fulfilling for me, to know that I gave somebody that skill and opened up pleasure in that way. So that's what got me going, and it was a natural high for me every time I would teach somebody how to do different things in the bedroom. And I was teaching guys stuff too. Like, I was nicknamed Little Dr. Ruth back in high school. And it's funny now when I mention Dr. Ruth's name to the younger generation, they don't know who she is. I'm like, oh no. But forever, Dr. Ruth was she's the queen of sex education and out in the media. So fast forward all through high school, all through college, I was always teaching people about sex. It was a hobby that I loved. I was good at it. My advice worked. And one day I said, gosh, I've taught so many women how to have an orgasm by teaching X, Y, and Z. I should write it down and go to Kinko's and I could photocopy it and then I'll staple it in half. I literally was thinking this, and then I can hand it out for free and I can help more women because I can't talk to everybody. So my desire to continue helping and to create a little pamphlet evolved, and I ended up writing a book. I didn't even know what self-publishing was, but that's what I ended up doing. And my first book was called Tickle Your Fancy, A Woman's Guide to Sexual Self-Pleasure. And that's where it all started, with female self-pleasure and teaching women how to have orgasms. And
So
it went from there.
let me ask you a question, okay? Because so this is so I'm going to try to think of the best ways is. So I'm a guy, okay? We're talking about sex, okay? And immediately I'm like, what can I ask and not ask, right? Because this is literally the first thing that went through. I'm like, can I ask you about, because it's like, I want to ask you about your sex, like your own personal sexuality, because I have to assume that's the origin in which this came from. It's not like the other way around where you're like, someone just magically gets interested in sex and then they go and learn about it, right? Like I might ask my kid, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they're like, I want to be a chef. Well, they've never been a chef before, right? But then they go and learn how to become a really good chef. And like, I could ask them anything I want about food. I feel like with someone who is in your line of work, I'm like, well, how old were you? And then I'm like, shit, I'm asking this woman, excuse me, that like, how old are you the first, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like,
Right.
is it like, where are the boundaries here? Let's start there. Cause I
You
want to know
know,
where the boundaries are.
that's a good question. And you're the first person in my 22-year career that's ever even brought this up. And I'll tell you, I bet a lot of people that I've interviewed with had the same question, didn't ask, and then stayed away from asking personal stuff. So I haven't been one to really share a ton about my personal escapades. That, but I've never been asked either, so I don't know if I would, how much I would divulge, or if I would segue out. so, I'm open to talk to seeing kind of where this goes. But that's a very good question. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And you guys don't know that, you don't know this, guys, but when we did the prep show, I told Dr. Sadie that I get told all the time that I ask questions that other people haven't asked. So I think you said, how long will it take? And there I go. First question.
Yep.
So I told you what happened. Okay. So I'm going to be careful because I'm going to actually preface it by saying, hey, this is an educational question. And then if I have a voyeuristic question, I'm just going to have, this is kind of voyeuristic, but I think it's also professional. Okay. And
Okay.
I'm a bit of a voyeurist. So I have kind of this like angle towards me where I've always had it, where I'm like, it's really my number 5 core value is curiosity. So I'm just super curious. And for someone to go into your line of work, it's just it's a fascinating thing. Right. So I guess when you say I was little Dr. Ruth, how old were you when you're like, how old are you the first time you had an orgasm? And I'll share mine.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
15, which is
Oh,
like
that's
probably
late. Late.
that's late,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
I was a little later, right? And
Hmm.
so when you started talking about the gift of orgasm, I was like, I can't fucking believe people don't have that, because I remember the first time it happened to me, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yep.
Like I want, and I'm a boy filled with testosterone. I was like, I'm gonna make this happen as much as fucking possible.
All day long. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it was
Yeah.
like, yeah. So anyway,
Yeah.
how old were you when the first time
Yeah.
that happened for you?
Gosh, I was probably about 7.
Whoa, no way! You're
Yes.
half my age.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And but I'll tell you that that's quite common for girls. And the thing is that when you're that age, it happens because you're rubbing up with your blanket or on the edge of your seat in elementary school, or you're touching yourself and it just feels good and you do it and you're like, oh, that felt good. Just kind of like if you have an itch and you scratch and you have relief and it feels good, or you get a massage. So when you're that young, you don't know that you're masturbating and that it's a sexual thing. But you're just doing it because it feels good, and then later you realize, oh, that's a sexual pleasure thing, and I've been doing that forever. Even my daughter, I found her on the couch one day masturbating, and she was like 6-ish and having a good old time in the living room. And so I just sat down with her and I explained. I was like, hey, honey, what you're doing here is totally cool. It's normal. And I know it feels good, and mommy has the same area, and I do the same thing. It's totally fine. But what that's called is masturbation. It's a way that we pleasure ourselves, but it's something that's really private. So it's something you should always only do in your bedroom and not when you're, at your girlfriend's house or out and about. But it's totally fine, but it's a private thing that you do by yourself in your bedroom at home. And then I also have always educated her just about some of the darker side of things that can happen out there. And I let her know that if anybody ever talks to you about this or wants to touch you there or anything like that, especially grown-ups, that's something that's not okay. And you need to talk to me right away. So I would plant that information in her head as a young girl every so often, just so that she knows there's some things out there that she needs to know about and that it's not okay. So just
I
to
love
protect her as well.
I love that. So you were young when you started, and then and which I guess and I said orgasm, not masturbate. So wait. So
The
so did I qualify that properly? Because I don't think that's that uncommon for kids to like like diddle themselves or masturbate or like I'll see my kids like I see my kids hump pillows and shit, right?
yeah.
And I'm like, and I'm like, hey, look what he's doing, like, and I don't shame either. I'm like, hey, that's totally natural and
Mhm.
like no big deal, right? But or I think when or coming to orgasm, going to orgasm, right, is no pun intended, right?
Yeah.
Is totally different. I think I view that I qualified that differently for myself. So was that your answer, or was I off
Um,
on that?
no, I did orgasm as well.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of some people don't, but a lot of people are having orgasms at that age. Our
Wow.
bodies are ready to go. It's, if you find where your clitoris is, we have 8,000 nerve endings right on the tip, which by the way, the penis has only 4,000. So if you can imagine just how sensitive women's bodies are, and specifically the tip of the clitoris, which is only the tip of the iceberg as far as the whole thing. Yeah, I've been orgasming regularly my whole life since I was 6 or 7.
So when did you start educating people around you about it? Like that's not a normal thing for a child to do. Like I'd be curious
No,
about that.
yeah. So that was in high school, and like I was mentioning, I was so comfortable with myself, my sexuality, touching myself. I'd been doing that for a long time, and I knew exactly what I liked. It was so normal to me. And you mentioned the word shame, which is a big word, and it's unfortunate that there's a lot of shame around sexuality and masturbation specifically. But I never had any of that. So I felt that I had an ability to be able to share with my friends what I knew and help bring them across to the other side and empower them to let them know it's okay that they can have this pleasure too. And here's how to do it, which is kind of, I became America's pleasure coach when I started writing books. That's one of my few titles that I have.
That's
Uh,
a well earned title. So this is a voyeuristic question. So voyeuristically, like if you're well, it's actually kind of an educational question too. Like if I'm in high school and there's a girl that's just sitting there talking about masturbating, I'm just like bringing myself going back to high school Darius. I'm like, who's and for those that are listening, Dr. Sadie's a beautiful woman. I'm sure you're beautiful when you're younger. Like good looking girl talking about masturbating. I'm like, that's like every guy's dream, right? So would I mean I could see that being perceived by maybe the wrong person, or if it's misunderstood as like, oh, that girl's, I'm going to use a word that you might not like, slutty, right? That girl is into sex. And guy, did you have that issue with kids growing up, or were you just owned it so hard that they were like, nope, she's just really empowered by sex?
it's a little both. I owned it hard. I had no shame, no reservation. I was fearless, and fearless with the giving. That was the TEDx talk. But I did also get a lot of flack and heat from people that perceived me as someone that slept around a lot and would look at me in a certain way, and then other girls that maybe I wasn't speaking to wouldn't have nice things to say behind my back. Typical high school stuff. But I was on a mission to help the people that wanted my help and knew that what I had to share um, helped these women and these girls come along and brought them to the other side of sexual empowerment. So I didn't care what people said about me or how people responded. I focused on what I was doing to give and the people that needed and wanted my help.
And where'd you go to high school in San Francisco? Because I'm a San
I
Francisco
actually
guy.
went to Rancho Cotati in Rohnert Park, which is about an hour north of the 101.
Yeah, yeah. Just north of
Yeah.
Marin. I know exactly where
Yep.
it is. So,
Hmm.
so you grew up Bay Area. You're educating the kids about sex, and to your, it's fun. It was funny what the answer you gave me though. I didn't expect that. I expected it to be a boy thing, and it sounded like the girls were like the ones that were like. The answer you gave made me what I heard you say. The story I told myself was that girls were fucking mean about it, not so much the guys. Is that true?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it was both. It was both. But you when you have a passion for something, you're always going to have ups and downs in whatever form that comes in. And for me at that time, it was getting bad mouthed at school, but I didn't let it phase me. I was on a mission, and I knew that the work I was doing at that age even was so valuable and helpful. And there wasn't a voice to help these girls, and they were my friends. And so I've always been that kind of friend. Like, I'm a girl's girl, a ride or die kind of person, and I'm very loyal. And I wanted to do whatever I could to help them have the same pleasures that I was having and that I knew they could have too.
So did you have a boyfriend then, or were you like single girl just having fun exploring yourself?
I did have boyfriends, but they would come and go, high school era. But I was active, I guess you can say. I'll put it that way. And that's how I was also getting some of the sex experience I was having, was by having different experiences and being with different lovers and partners, where you understand that every body is different and every person likes something different. And what worked on your last partner might be totally wrong for your next partner and what they find is pleasurable. So I learned by trial and error and by doing a lot of the things that I learned along the way and that I actually was able to put into my books.
So what do you what like so let's kind of go down the rabbit hole of we use the word shame a little bit because I think like a lot of the negativity. I was having a conversation about this actually with one of my forum mates 2 days ago because his girlfriend's like really into like sexual empowerment of women and like it's as she calls it, her word not mine, it's the pussy power, right? And so like she's like all about women owning the orgasm and sexuality, and that a lot of the problems of society are stem from the shame associated with sex. And even the stuff we're talking about is like people shaming other people for something that's totally natural, right? Like that's not only is it natural, it's like one of the pillars of life, right? it's
Yeah,
like it's like
absolutely.
something like if you're not having it, like fuck, that's like saying I don't eat good food, right? So like I don't know how people do it. So what are your thoughts? Like, where do you think this stems from? Is this just like a Puritan religion? Like, what are your thoughts?
So
Why do you think people like? Is this just like culture? Like, what are your thoughts?
it's all of those things that you just mentioned. A lot of it is during our upbringing, because when you're a child, you're just a sponge, and whatever you're told and shown and role modeled is what you become. It's not our choice. It's what is just given to us, and that could be from negative talk and parents putting you down, and then you grow up and you wonder why you feel like you're never going to amount to anything and you're not good enough. So whatever messaging we got, which often was negative around sexuality. I mean, we come from an era where religion, which so many people have their followings, say it's bad and you're not supposed to do it. So like that gets programmed. And then society and whatever the household thinks, your parents, your caregivers, whatever you're programmed with is what you become. So unfortunately, it's been a really difficult journey for women and men too. It's just not talked about as much. Just as many men, just about. But nowadays, when the internet came around and then social media, everybody was able to talk to everybody now, and that's why we have so many different categories and names and gender fluid and all the different things that people are able to identify with these days. But sex and shame have changed over the years. People nowadays understand that, hey, it's just pleasure, folks. That's what I like to say. It's not, it's how we even born. Our parents were having sex, but yet they're telling. So a lot of mixed messages, but things are changing now. And I think the focus has become the orgasm gap. Are you familiar with that?
I've never heard that term before.
Yeah, it's a big term, and it's basically the gap that there is between orgasms that men are able to achieve, which is almost every time, versus women and how often they're actually achieving an orgasm during a lovemaking session, which is way less. So
What
why
are the numbers? What are the numbers?
gosh, I think it's like, let's just say it's happening, 95% of the time, and women it might be 55%.
Wow.
So
Okay.
it's I'm not sure if those are exact, but I know there's a huge gap, and it's something that myself and a lot of sex educators and therapists actually focus on and are trying to get those numbers more even. And there's a lot of reasons why there's this big gap, and it comes down to the main one being sex education. I mean, we've
So
never been.
you don't think it's just, I mean, like when you just said that, I'm like, well, I just think it's physiological too, right? Like as far as the complexity of orgasm for a man versus woman, it's not that? That was
Nope.
my instant thought. I'm like,
Yeah.
and like it's just easier to orgasm if you're a guy, right? Like
Well, it
it's not
is
as
it
simple as
is
that.
it no, sorry. I mean,
Oh shit.
sorry, man. That's a part of it. Definitely guys' anatomy is on the outside. The wind blows, you're ready to go. You have 7 natural erections throughout every evening when you're sleeping, blood flow, it's your body and your organs work. So, it's easy for guys, it's a little more intuitive to have an orgasm. But for women, our bodies are much more complex. Our genitals, our vulva, our clitoris all kind of go inward. And a lot of our parts are inside. And there takes knowledge to really kind of understand how our bodies work. So that's why self pleasure and masturbation is so important for women to start with and to incorporate that into their sexual well being and sexual health life. And then also for men to have an open mind and understand that if you want to be able to please your woman, that you have to take a little time to understand and learn how her body works and all about the clitoris and what kind of techniques that she likes, and you have to have this open communication and dialogue. So as you can already tell, there's a lot of different factors that have to play into this to be able to fix this orgasm gap. But when you've got a couple that are really interested and care about each other's pleasure and that communicate before, during, and after sex, you can close that pleasure gap. And it's not that hard. It just takes a little effort, like anything good in life. You put some time and effort and willingness into it, you can get there. So,
What do you think though about like, so I was reading Brene Brown's Dare Greatly over the
mhm,
weekend, and she talks a lot about men. I don't know if it's shame, but it's around like pressure for men to be great perform. Like there's like this like you're good in bed, you're not, right? And
mhm,
like men, there's tons of shame around like not being great at performing, right? And so that combined with men in general are like less emotional or less willing to show, part of that's wiring, probably that's part of that's culture too. And then there's a whole stigma around, what I just said. Plus, on top of that, there's a stigma around, you know, how do you like show vulnerability because you're told to be tough and this, that, and the other. So a guy who's not great, doesn't have the right skill sets, has not, and I can think later on top of that, it's a lot easier for a girl to hook up with someone than a guy. I think it is, because a girl can kind of like choose, and
yeah, we
most
pick them
guys,
out.
you pick them out, and like and like you may not always get what you want, but like I guarantee you like a girl can get laid if they want to, like, and whereas a guy, like, there's no guarantee there, right? Like you may want to, and like you got to put yourself out there and get rejected a shit ton potentially, whereas a girl doesn't. I think that's not in the equation, I think, for women as much. So like you combine all those things together, and so how does a guy like become better if if those all those things are stacked against them? Maybe if they're not in a partnership, or if they're in a partnership, how do they show vulnerability if they are like, man, I haven't like, I don't know if I'm good, and I feel embarrassed to ask. Like, what are your thoughts around these things? I know that's a
Yeah.
bunch of stuff, but I'd love to get
Uh-huh.
your feedback.
Well, for me, I believe that comes down to education because we never learn how to have good sex. Like you're lucky these days if you even have sex anatomy in school. So like, where do you ever learn how to give pleasure and how to receive pleasure? And that's why I wrote 6 books, was to specifically share the techniques for that. But it comes down to having a healthy relationship with whatever partner you're with, so that you can be expressive, and to be explorative. Because if you're exploring your partner during lovemaking and asking a couple questions, that's how you're going to learn and be able to please your partner better. And then that will build the confidence that you're looking for, where you can be more daring and that you got the feedback from her or him, and you can continue to build together. So it really takes a level of maturity and desire and communication, because without that, you could just be fumbling in the dark. Or in today's world, one of the sad things going on is our younger generation, they're watching a lot of porn and they're using that as their teacher. So then they go and they have sex with a girl and they're modeling after what they saw on the screen, and they're having an orgasm and they're finishing, and maybe they're having sex too hard and too fast. And then the girls leave going, "Oh, if that's what sex is all about, I guess I don't like sex." When really it's just a huge misunderstanding and a big mismatch. And so I encourage people to take the time to educate, learn a few new techniques. There's so many resources out there. There's videos, workshops, books, TikTok. You can find so much content now to teach you just something new, just one little thing. Start with that and communicate and have fun with your partner. That's the other thing, is it doesn't have to be such this huge burden of, am I good? And am I like, take it down. It's like, don't look at the big mountain, just start at the bottom and take one baby step. And that might be trying one new thing and communicating about it. And you might even laugh or roll off the bed by accident. And that's what the fun is all about. And that'll bring you closer to your partner and more in touch.
So what do you think about like people? So this might be for listeners who are like, well, that's great if they have a partner, right? Then that they can. Then it's just a question of bridging the gap of vulnerability, or reading your books, or doing the different things you can do to kind of, like, to your point, test the waters, and that probably takes some comfort and some open mindedness. But what about for folks that don't, maybe they're single, or they're like a listener that's a younger listener that doesn't have a girlfriend or boyfriend, and they're like, yeah, I read your book, Dr. Sadie, but what the hell do I do next? I got to go find someone to go like, hey, I just read this book. I want to try this stuff on you. Like, how do you
Kinda.
reconcile that? Yeah.
Well, finding a lover, that's something that we all have to, figure out the right path, whether it's online dating or going out and doing more social things, or joining a club if you like hiking or what have you. So finding the partner, I don't know if I can help you do that. You have to find your way. But once you have one and you guys are going to be intimate, like I was saying, take some time to educate yourself, because you'll find there's a world of information that you never knew. And you'll be like, oh my God, and that sounds really exciting and fun, and I want to try that. And then you let your partner pick out something new too. So if you be the hero in the relationship that you find, and kind of encourage and engage that kind of connection and open communication and exploration, you'll find that you can have some of the best sex you've ever had.
And do you think that, like, going back to the shame conversation, like, people are listening to this might be like, yeah, all this sounds great, Dr. Sadie. Like, I mean, on paper, everything you're saying makes sense. But I'm so fearful of trying new things or asking for things that I think I might want, or that are more risque or more exotic. Like, how do you think, what's your recommendation for approaching that? Because I think a lot of people, especially like our probably avatar that's listening to this, is people that they're probably in their like middle age. They've been with the same person. Maybe it's just like eating the same meal every day,
Mm-hmm.
and so, like, spicing it up seems like they don't even know where to start, right? And hey, I'm going to ask my partner to try this new thing, and there's fear of rejection there. Like, how do you reconcile that, or what's a way to what would you recommend?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's so many ways to approach that. Uh, and there's no magical answer. The main thing is that you have to do something different. It's like, you mentioned having the same meal every day. Yeah, that is going to get old and a little boring, and you're not going to want it if it's the same dish every day. So you need to mix it up. Try new recipes. Like a simple thing would be to try some new sex positions, for example, because a lot of us, when we're in a long-term relationship, we end up doing the same one, two, or three things. I think most people can relate, and it kind of just becomes mechanical. So you got to like stop the pattern and switch it up and try something new. So whether that be introducing just a new position, or taking sex out of the bedroom and go on the couch in the living room. There's a ton of fun positions you can do right on the couch. So something like that is super simple that anybody can do and is a great start. And when you do something like that, you'll find that your partner will be like, oh, wow, that orgasm felt different because I was sitting on you in a different way this time. Or, wow, when we got into that doggy style position, you were actually able to reach around better and you can stimulate and pleasure my clitoris while we're making love. And oh my God, that orgasm was whew. So it's really just taking the initiative to try some new things and being the champion to initiate it. And the other thing, there's so many sex toys and products that you can bring into the bedroom. I like to call those bedroom accessories. And for anyone out there that feels like you're fine, you don't need those, we have everything under control. It's not about replacing you or replacing anything. It's really just something to throw in the mix once in a while to just add a little new fun and excitement. And again, you'll find, oh, wow, this isn't the same old dish. Now we tried this vibrator and I used a penis ring and she had multiple orgasms this time that I didn't even know she could have. And wow, when I wore the penis ring, my climax was so much more powerful. I never felt that before. So there's a whole world of pleasure if you just open yourself up to explore and invest a little bit of time and effort into it.
And you know what I love about Dr. Sadie is that she puts her money where her mouth is, because I got I showed you all the books. What I didn't show you was the goodies she sent me. And for anyone listening, you can just imagine I'm holding a let's see, Womanizer, the original, which this is I'm guessing this is a vibrator. Is that what this is?
Well, actually, that is it's an air suction pleasure product for women, and it's specifically made to there's a silicone tip that's got a circle, and you place that right over the clitoris. You turn it on, and it has a gentle air suction and almost feels like fellatio or cunnilingus, either. And this product, they've had test groups where 50% of the women that tried it had an orgasm in less than 60 seconds.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, it's pretty, that one's called the Liberty. It's pretty amazing. And it's pretty much revolutionized the sex toy industry. They came out like, I don't know, 8 years ago, but up until then, there was nothing like that. And so I really love this product because it gives women an orgasm that has never been able to achieve one before.
That's amazing. That might have to get unboxed. I'm not saying it will, but I'm not saying it won't either.
I'm going to hold you to that.
My wife's not listening to this, but if any of her friends are, don't tell her what we just talked about. And then I got this little bad boy. This has been unboxed. Closeness.
Yeah, that's called the Wave, and that, by the way, is a vibrating penis ring. You might not know that, but that part vibrates, and that's a couple's toy. And what's really wonderful about those is that it's worn during lovemaking. It slips on and goes down to the base of the penis, and you turn it on and it vibrates. So when you're making love and you're together with your partner, she's getting vibration right on her clitoris where she needs it. And he's feeling vibration too, which is fun for guys. For anyone who hasn't tried it, vibration can feel really great. But also the ring helps keep blood flow in the penis, which makes erections stronger and last longer. So anybody who has lasting challenges, penis rings are great for that and help support that. But now women are able to actually climax during intercourse as well, helping to close the orgasm gap that we were talking about.
You know, so it's interesting as I brought this up to, I'm in a bunch of CEO groups, and I did a poll. I said, how many of you guys have ever used a penis ring? And it was it was like 12%. It was like it was like 1 or 2 out of the 8. It was a really small number. Now, what was funny was the couple that had were like, fuck yeah, I used one of those. They're the best.
Yeah.
Right. And it was funny. The rest of the guys had no idea. They were like clueless.
What? Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, because like, where do you learn this stuff, right? Like, you have to like search out. This is not something guys talk about, right? Because there's a lot of shame around sex with men. Like guys don't talk about the sex they have with their wives, like, because other guys don't want to hear it. Like if my buddy starts telling me about the sex he's having with his wife, I'm like, bro, I don't want to hear about you fucking your wife. Like maybe that's the problem though. Maybe we do need to hear more about that. But I'm telling you, it feels weird. Like I have
I
friends that are
know.
like, my wife is so hot, I love having sex with her, and I'm like, will you stop that? Like it's I don't know how to reconcile that.
Why do you feel that's weird when you hear that?
I don't know. Like I don't really I don't know. Like it's funny. I've never thought about. All I know is like when they do it, I feel like maybe that, you know what it is? Like I feel like it's like a bragging thing, right? Like if a guy's like, "Oh, I can have sex for," like when guys talk about having sex, I guess it's like, I guess my history with it, I'll take a step back. My history with it is it's a thing guys do to put themselves above other guys, right? Where they're like, "Oh, I'm a stud, right? I'm a badass."
Okay.
And so automatically it's like a guy saying he beats everyone up, right? Like I'm like, the only guys that do that are the guys that get their asses kicked, you know. And so there's this thing for me where I'm like, it's like humility, right? It's not coming from a
Mm-hmm.
place of warmth, it's coming from a place of dominance. Like I'm trying to be
That's
better than other people. So I don't
that's
know.
interesting. It's interesting that you have that perspective. Uh, and you know, everybody has a different set of ears when they hear something, and how we kind of receive that. And it's interesting because that's common. It's kind of like I hear it. It's like a macho thing or bragging.
Yeah.
I can see how you would translate it to that. But on the other hand, I think men should talk about sex more with each other, just like a lot of women do, because that's how we learn. That's how we compare notes. That's how we can teach each other things. So I think the macho thing that guys have, if we could throw that out the window, I think that would help a lot. And it would help in the bedroom, because on that same note, a lot of guys don't communicate with women that they're with. So how are you going to know if what you're doing with her is really pleasing her or not? And
Yeah.
then on the flip
Well,
side, when a guy is pleasing a woman or trying to, and she's not being pleased and she's faking an orgasm, that's not helping anybody. I
no.
mean, yeah, it's disservicing herself, but it's also very misleading to her lover who is trying to please her a lot of the time. So I encourage any woman who's faking orgasms to stop uh, and communicate really what's going on.
Yeah, I'm all about people being authentic, right? So it's like if I was in that boat, I would be like, please, you should tell people, right? That like they like that you're not doing that. Like they think they're doing something good and they're not, right? To your point, and it's not helping you have a better relationship. So I don't see why.
Yeah.
I don't. That doesn't make sense to me. But going back to though, like, you know, I was thinking as you were talking about that, I started thinking about the different groups of men that I'm around, and there is definitely a macho part of it. It's probably 50% of the men that if we talk about sex, it's to humiliate another, that they will do it within the context of humiliating another person. And it's just guys like kind of giving each other shit, right? But
Mm-hmm.
there's a culture of humiliation associated with it. And it's around, yeah, it's status, humiliation, I
Mm-hmm.
want to say light bullying, and these are grown. I'm talking when as I say this, I'm thinking of men in their 50s who do it to each other, who I'm very good friends with. And on the flip side of that, I have really good friends who were much that vibe's not in those groups, and it's coming from the place of serving each other and wanting each other to have better lives and more grounded existence. So I do think that that's probably part of the male culture, like at least in America, that I've seen, especially around a lot of alpha males.
Right.
I'm around a lot of alpha males just because I'm in a lot of CEO groups. Half the groups they do what I'm talking about. They give each other shit, and there's a humiliation part of it, I guess.
Yeah, and that's really sad. And I think that all comes down to someone's own insecurities inside. Because you find that the people that are more outspoken about being cocky about things and humiliating are the ones themselves that have insecurities, and that's why it comes out in that way. So yeah, I think men have to have a little more compassion for themselves and know that sex is just a natural, healthy part of your life. I also think that when guys talk to other guys, there is a certain nature, and I hope and think that when they're talking to their partners, their female partners, that it's not that way. And there is a little more understanding and patience and empathy and compassion, and that they're not treating their partners at home in the same way. I think it's a guy thing to act cool.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty certain of it because I could tell that because it's funny is the guy I'll see them around their significant others and I'm like they act way different. Like they're
Yeah.
so sweet and nice. I'm like that ain't the guy I know.
Uh,
But you know, so it's funny like you say that. Um, so I want to go two different directions. One is like we live in this culture now where you have less people getting married. You have a lot more there at least from my listening to the culture. I have a lot of friends who are in open relationships. They're not getting married. It seems like the open relationship thing is like really popular. I go out a lot. I don't like wearing any jewelry, so I don't wear wedding rings. And my wife is more of an introvert, I'm more of an extrovert. I go out a lot with my friends who are, most of them are single, or and they're like my single friends. And every single time I've been asked now more in the last year than in probably the last 44 years of my life. I got asked more in the last 9 months of this year than ever before if I'm in an open relationship, which I'm not. What do you think? What do you think about that when it comes to sexuality and what's going on, and what are you seeing with that?
yeah. Well, is it men or women asking you?
Both, mostly women actually.
And is it with the intent that maybe they're interested in you romantically,
I
or
mean,
is
I
it more
assume
of a?
I
Sorry,
my,
okay.
my funny answer was going to be I assume everyone's interested in me romantically because why wouldn't she be?
Okay. Of
I don't
course.
know. Listen, I've been asked yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. Because yeah, I don't know. It could be because I talk about my wife and kids like normal. Like I'm not like hiding that
Yeah.
I'm like yeah, I've been with my wife for 22 years. I think it's my behavior is misaligned with someone that's normally a family person, even though I'm a super family person. But when I
Hmm.
go out and hang out, that's not what people like that normally do, and I do it a
Yeah.
little bit. So I don't know, maybe that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting time. And it's funny that you bring that up because I'm single. And so I'm on a couple dating apps, just keeping all doors open. You never know. And I was chatting with someone the other day, and he said, "What are you interested in? Open relationship, monogamous, non-monogamous, one time, long term?" And I was like, "Whoa!" The question was asked early on in our conversation in text, and at first I think I might just be old school, or it's the way the new generation is, that's just qualifying somebody. And it is so common to be in open relationships now that it's a kind of a normal question. Like, what kind of food do you like? Like, I think it's that normal to talk about that and upfront, because it kind of helps someone identify where you stand and if this is going to be something you're both interested in, and kind of where your views are. So I don't find it odd that you're getting asked that. And I just experienced that too. So I think it's just the new way in today's world.
What's funny about that though is, and I fully agree with you. That was kind of where I landed, but I wanted to get your thoughts as a professional in this area. What do you like? A part of me is like, I don't know if this is like, maybe I'm being judgy right now, but I'm like, I don't know if that's a good thing for like relate. I think for some folks it makes sense, because I think that a lot of people struggle through monogamy. I know as a guy, like at least my feelings are like a lot of men I know when I talk to them, they're like, if they could have it both ways, they would. I don't know if women feel
Hmm.
that way. I know some women do, but my sense is like I've talked to friends who are women that have tried it, and they're like, "Oh, I'm not a guy." Like guys can
Yeah.
just do it and not care, but women, it's like they want to. They're and one could argue that it's biology around that, and protecting yourself and Darwinism, but I don't when I think of it, I'm like, this seems like a bad thing for like people building families and procreating healthy families when if people are out there sleeping around and having these open relationships. What do you think about that as like a sex professional?
Yeah. Well, first off, it is biology. Men are designed to procreate. That's why a guy can go out and have sex with different women, because their bodies are wired to procreate. And it doesn't mean you love your wife any less, or that you want to have a relationship with that woman you may have slept with. And women, on the other hand, are caretakers. where we take care of the home. Like we come from a place of one partner that's strong and that can provide for the family and that you have multiple kids with. So the way that our bodies were created, that's just this huge disconnect. And that's why when a woman actually cheats on her husband, it's much more serious than when a guy does, because that means she's not being emotionally fulfilled. Whereas a guy can go cheat, just have sex, come back, and everything's the same. It doesn't mean he's unhappy at all. So, but on the point of having open relationships, it can totally work, and many people do it successfully and have families and have children. Uh, the thing about it, though, is it's a slippery slope. So you do have to know what you're doing, and learn about it and set up boundaries and guidelines with your partner, because there's rules that you have to go by, and every couple will have their own set of rules. Like some people, women might say, okay, we've been married for 25 years. I understand. I have the same desires. I'm not really interested in going out and having sex with other men, but I'm going to be okay if you have sex with another woman once in a while, but I don't want to hear about it. I don't want any relationship going on. If you're traveling, you meet someone, fine, and that's it. And that could just be the boundary. Or it could be, hey, I'm interested in this too. Let's go out and find another couple that we both like and create a friendship so that we feel comfortable and we actually like these people and they're people we'll go out to dinner with. And then maybe we could all play, but maybe there's no penetration involved because I'm not that comfortable with that. But kissing and fondling and oral, maybe we can do that. So it's the sky's the limit. And there's some great books on this too that can actually guide you on exploring this. So it can be a very healthy thing. And a lot of people do it successfully. But I do caution you that if you want to do it because you're in an unhappy relationship and you have issues you're not addressing, it's going to blow up and make things worse. So it's not a solution if you're in a relationship that you're having problems. You've got to be in a healthy relationship to do that.
I have 2 questions for you. How are we on time? Can I keep you for 10 more minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Is that cool? So, okay, 2 questions for you.
It's fun talking to you.
Yeah. I told you. So question number 1, not that I'm interested in those books, but for audience members, that will be the number 1 book that you would recommend for people that want to explore these topics better.
Okay, so I do have 6, but the one that I'm extra known for is called Tickle His Pickle. I've been called a penis genius because so many women were natural pleasers, and a lot of women want to be able to give a good blowjob and a hand job. But where do you ever learn how to do that? So that's what my book covers. So it teaches you how to give a 5-star BJ and have the confidence and all the techniques. And then Ride 'em Cowgirl, I would recommend for couples. There's over 100 different illustrated positions, but I go beyond a standard position book because when I wrote the book, I was wondering what makes one woman a great lover in missionary position, for example. And then a guy says, but this other woman, she was a dead fish. And I was like, well, what if she's just laying in missionary in both instances? What made this woman so great where you're talking to your buddies about her and this woman was just eh? And so what I did was I put this Ride 'em Cowgirl book together to really tell people what to do when you're in these positions to make yourself a good lover. And it goes for both sides, whether you're the woman or the man giving or receiving. It's like, what do you do with your hands? Where are you supposed to look? What kind of sounds does your lover want to hear? What can you bring into the position that makes it even more exciting? So that's a really great book that I think everybody should read, and even high schoolers. It's kind of like if I had a book like this when I was in high school, where all my friends had these books, it really would have made a huge difference in their sex lives and got them started off right.
I love that. My 13-year-old's not going to read it quite yet. What's the age if I wanted to like educate my kids with this stuff?
Well, kids are having sex so young right now, and the average kid is seeing pornography by the time they're 8. By the way,
that's so weird.
Yeah, I mean, you might have their phone with parental protection, but they're going to school and seeing it on their friend's phone, so they're seeing it. So 13, 14, whatever you're comfortable with as a parent. But definitely,
I was 10 when I saw it, and this is back old school like videotapes.
Oh, that's early.
Remember, and honestly, I'm gonna admit something I've never admitted before. I was 5 the first time I saw like hardcore magazine, like the inside of the female,
like a Hustler. Yeah. Oh, okay.
like the inside where they showed the inside. It was like, and I remember I was like, ew. I was like, what? I was like 5. I was like kindergarten, and then when I was in 5th grade, my buddy's brother had like a video. It was called, I remember the name. It was called Surfside Sex, and we were at, it was like a 5th grade birthday party, and we put in this hardcore porn, and I remember being fucking disgusted. I was grossed out, like. So I mean, I got to assume the kids these days are just as grossed out as I was, because it didn't make a lot of sense, and it was like kind of weird, you know.
I don't think they're grossed out in today's world.
Really?
Yeah, it's different
why?
now. It's normal. It's normalized. It's everywhere. They grew up with it on their smartphones since they were young. Their friends are watching it. They're watching it together, having masturbation jerk off parties. I could tell you a story another time about my daughter. People are doing some stuff today. They're much more open and comfortable.
Wow.
But on that note, I wanted to mention, people of middle age, especially women, it's such a great time to embrace your sexuality. I'm in my 50s and menopausal. And, you mentioned my serum I made, Go Love CBD Intimate Serum. And I created that for women who experience sexual pain. And because 3 in 4 women will have pain, and that's according to the American College of Gynecology and Obstetricians, it's a huge issue. It's just something that's not so talked about. So we don't really know and realize just how many women have sexual health conditions like endometriosis, vaginismus, vaginosis, postpartum pelvic floor spasms. There's dozens of things that women are going through that prevent them from having intercourse with their husbands or boyfriends, or even using a tampon because it hurts. It's really sad. So when I learned about CBD and how it's a natural plant-based medicine that actually helps reduce inflammation and pain, as well as anxiety. A lot of people have sexual anxiety. You were talking about performance issues earlier. A lot of people go into the bedroom wondering like, oh, am I going to orgasm this time? Or are they going to like me? Or is what I'm doing feel good to them? Or am I going to feel pain again? I can't relax. So I realized, wow, the CBD really can help in this area. And so I worked with a formulation scientist to make Go Love CBD serum to help women and couples reclaim their sex lives. And it's been a gift for me to be able to give that gift to people. I started off teaching girls how to orgasm and how to give and receive pleasure. And then 20 years later, I wanted to do something new and different that was built on top of the foundation that I had with my 6 books and ticklekitty.com. And I realized, wow, I can make this CBD serum, and now I can help women who can't even have sex because they have these pain conditions. And when they use it, it actually lowers their pain. And I get all these emails and reviews about how they've been able to have sex again for the first time in a long time and enjoy their husbands again. So I just am really into sexual health and wellness. And so when I created that, it was something, my goal was to help women of my age embrace their sexuality and know that your sex life doesn't end when you're in menopause. Just because you have hormonal fluctuations, your body changes, you adapt and you do different things and you use new products and do what you need to do to enjoy this new phase in life. We're in our prime right now.
Hells yeah. It's fun. That was actually my next question. I wanted to, I got so you are so interesting, and I had so many questions for you. I didn't mean to get here so late in the game, but yeah, you're doing this really cool intimate CBD serum. Is it just for like when someone's buying that? Is that really the audience is like women, or is it more than just that? Is it a lubricant that like anyone would want to consider for other like acts of sex? Like what are your thoughts around that?
It could be used by anyone for any sexual act, but because I have a good amount of therapeutic CBD in the product, it is specifically if you do have pain, it's definitely helpful for that pain or muscle spasms or anxiety. And then I have a regular lube that I made that's good for anybody, and that's called Slippery Kitty. A little more fun and playful. And that one does not have CBD, but it is good for sensitive skin and it's a long lasting glide. So either one works great, but the Go Love CBD is definitely if a woman at any age has any kind of discomfort during sex.
I love that. And I love that you're such a giver. Like, again, going back to the beginning of the conversation, that was really the, your talk at our TEDx was around gifting, and here you are, just like, that's your purpose. Like, that, right? So you're just
Ah, thank
continuing
you.
along. Yeah, well, you thank you, and forget about me. Thank you. Well, look, number one, this has been so much fun. I knew this was going to be fun. I didn't know what I was going to ask you, but I knew I was going to ask you a lot of stuff. I'd love to end with our greatness question, and then we can give the audience all sorts of stuff. In fact, I want you to plug where they can find all this stuff first. Then we're going to greatness question so that the audience members can write the stuff down, and then we can go straight to the greatness question. So where can they hook up with all the stuff you're working on, get all your good, all the products that you're working on, all the stuff you're selling through your stores, like what, where, how, and why?
Okay, fantastic. Well, ticklekitty.com is my sex toy boutique where you'll find my 6 how-to sex books on masturbation, tickling the pickle, positions. There's a book called Tickle My Tush. Bet you can figure out what that's about.
Hmm.
And there's one called The Mystery of the Undercover Clitoris. That's for the guys on how to touch a clitoris. That's a great guide if you're not sure about the clitoris. And a ton of sex toys that I've curated personally. So it is a boutique of products that I specifically picked out and took the guesswork out for you. And Slippery Kitty is the lube that I made that's also on that site. And then
Nice.
my other product, Go Love CBD Intimate Serum, can be found at golovecbd.com. And you can find out a lot of education on the blog there about CBD and how it works in the body and different ways to incorporate CBD serum into your love life and how it can be helpful. Um, and
Fantastic.
then, and then I'm also going to start seeing patients again and offer sex coaching, some one-on-one coaching. So you can go to the contact page on any of those on ticklekitty.com or golovecbd.com and reach out and we can set up a consultation.
So hold on, let's talk about the coaching for a second. So because I was like, oh, who would be the audience? The couples, individuals, like what does that look like with people that want sex coaching?
Anybody that wants my advice and that's seen my books or likes what they hear when I speak, I feel like I have a lot to offer. So if my style works for someone, and I focus on pleasure techniques, so giving pleasure, how to do things, how to talk about things, how to feel more comfortable receiving pleasure, different ideas for you and your partner based on where you're at and what kind of things you might like. And then I have a ton of resources and peers also. So sometimes I will refer people to someone else if there's a different issue that I feel they can be helped better by someone else. So it's really just all pleasure, folks.
I love that. So where would they connect with you for that if they wanted to look into
Just
coaching?
go to golovecbd.com and just go to the contacts page and reach out and I'll get those emails.
Amazing. So we'll make sure we put all that stuff in the notes. There was a lot there, and I'm Go Love CBD, ticklekitty.com. And what was the other one?
Those are the 2 websites.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
So we'll make
Yep.
sure we put that in the show notes, and we'll make sure that we get all that stuff in there. And then you were very gracious. You wanted to offer our listeners. Are you still down to do that?
Oh
Giving them
yeah.
kind of
Yep.
a
It's all
special
set. It's set up.
code.
Yep.
Yeah, go
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So,
yeah, do you mind giving that, and then I'll make sure that's in
yeah,
the show notes too.
yeah. I've created a coupon code for Darius with so 15% off anything that you want to buy at ticklekitty.com or golovecbd.com. Just use the code Greatness Machine when you check out, and you'll get 15% off your order.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for that. I'm sure many of our audience, you guys need to hook yourself up. I'm telling you, I got the little like gift box. It was so fun opening that thing. And yeah, I can say I am a satisfied customer. Let's go to the greatness question, and we'll get you out of here. So we always ask our guests this, and we love to end on it. And it goes like this: what is the number one barrier to creating greatness that you've overcome in your life, and how did you overcome it?
Wow, that's a big question. I would say um, I'm always honest. So my biggest obstacle was my upbringing. I grew up in you could say a dysfunctional family, and a lot of unpleasant, unfortunate things as a child that children shouldn't have to grow up in. So I was ejected out into the world at 15, and it was on my own at that age, and haven't had any parental guidance since then. And so when you're a troubled teen and carrying a lot of hurt and pain, meandering through life, trying to just make it as a young teen, it can be difficult. And so I learned at that time, I'm either going to sink or swim. And so you either throw in the towel and get involved with the wrong people, or get into drugs, or what have you, or you become a fighter and a thriver and choose to beat the odds and to do whatever it takes and work your ass off. And so I would say that at that age, choosing yes instead of throwing in the towel into my sorrows was probably one of the best choices I made, and the biggest challenges and obstacles that I had to get through. And then I always was very entrepreneurial and wanted my own business. And that's a whole other story. Maybe we could talk about on a part 2. But I ended up taking all of this pent up pain and challenges that I carried, that I went through from my childhood, and I poured it into perseverance in Tickle Kitty when I started that. And I was working day and night, and I was determined, and I wasn't going to be held back, and I was going to make my own way. And so all of that drive, I feel, came from the pain that I went through as a kid, and I turned it into perseverance in building a company. So that's kind of, yeah.
That's
Thanks.
Amazing. I appreciate you so much, Dr. Sadie. What an amazing episode. You rock.
Thanks. It was one of the most fun interviews I've had. Thanks, Darius.
Yeah, no. So just so you know, this is the first sex interview we've had, so we got to talk sex.
Really?
And I love talking about sex. So I haven't, I don't talk about it on the show that often, but anyone that knows me in my personal life, it's like one of my favorite topics. I just think it's amazing, and it's like, and
you did really great today. I love being interviewed by people that are comfortable talking about sex and that have their own things to offer and create really engaging conversation. And by the way, you only asked me one personal question, and that was, how early did I orgasm?
Yeah. Well, I was just like, if you're in the sex world, it's like kind of a, like, what got you started? I mean, that's like, it's like asking a chef when's the first time they cooked something,
Yeah.
like that's how I thought of it. Well, let's get wrapped up. Listen, audience members, Dr. Sadie's doing some amazing things in the world. Go follow her. We'll put up all your social stuff too. We'll go follow her. Go check out all her stuff. Use the Greatness Machine code. Buy some stuff. And until next time, peace out, everybody. We love you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
You are listening to The Greatness Machine, and that's a wrap for today. Listen, if you love what you heard, subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform that you're tuning in on, so that you don't miss any of our future episodes. We have tons of great people coming on, and we're stoked to have you here to enjoy it with us. Leave us a review. Tell us what you love most about this particular episode. We love getting the reviews. We love to see what you guys love most. And if this particular episode, made you think of someone who's leveling up in their business and in their life, print screen, share it with them. Leaders are the best givers. And after all, we're all here to support and grow with each other. And in case you want to see some of the fun behind the scenes shots or some of the things that we're doing, I'm actually writing about this in my weekly newsletter. Go to www.therealdarius.com and subscribe to my newsletter. We're talking about fun things like business and life and mindfulness and cryptocurrencies and gosh, I don't even know, everything and anything, but it's tons of fun stuff I write about. I try to get it out on a weekly basis. You can subscribe at www.therealdarius.com. And with that said, look, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. I love you. Peace. We're out of here. See you guys on the next one.
She's my lover.